At best, the alien abduction phenomenon is a terrifying, traumatic experience. At its worst, well, we think they sometimes take people and don't put them back.
I lost my mother and brother to this trauma. He murdered her, then killed himself.
These women are being used as human incubators, with all their children stolen away into the night.
A 6-foot-tall entity of blue-white light paralyzed me, then bent down and said into my ear, "Hi, Steve." It knew my name.
We hear gruesome stories of experiments and dissections. Imagine dying on a metal table while paralyzed, surrounded by alien faces. It's a real horror story.
Hello, everybody. This is Stephen Shaw. My co-host isn't here right now, Leslie Shaw. Anyways, I want to kind of bring people up to speed with what is happening with part of our really interesting theory. As of September the 12th last year, we are most likely have what's called a dark companion to our sun, which is out towards the farther reaches of the Oort cloud, which is still part of our solar system. Okay. We know this because of the gravitational effects on what are called trans-Neptunian objects, which have to do with the orbit of Neptune and Uranus, which have been unusual for since we've been able to track things such as that. So we've speculated that there is a large a body of that is around about the size of Jupiter, with a strong magnetic field that has been a part of our solar system, which we call what he calls a brown dwarf. Now, brown dwarf is something that gives off heat and light in the ultraviolet range, so we can't really see it. But these brown dwarfs have been detected outside of our solar system with about 80 times the mass of Jupiter. In other words, they're the size of Jupiter, but they actually are 80 times more dense. So their electromagnetic field is so much more intense than Jupiter's is. And Jupiter has has the second largest magnetic field in our solar system next to the sun. So anyways, now we know by using telescopes such as the James Webb, Hubble, and the WISE telescope, even though we can't actually see it because it's a dark object, we know because of its effect upon other stellar objects, such as especially Neptune and Uranus, that there is likely a brown dwarf, not planet number 9, but because it's so dark, we can't actually see it as of yet. But that goes to our theory about the Anunnaki with Nibiru, and also there being basically another body like our sun, but that is also having an effect and also to generating heat, and most likely has planets around it. Now, the Oort cloud is anywhere from 2,000 to 100,000 astronomical units away from us, and each astronomical unit is 93 million miles. So it is a long ways away, and it is in what's called interstellar space, but interstellar space is still part of our solar system. So anyways, I thought I'd give our audience a little bit of an update on that we do have what it looks like is a brown dwarf, at least one, in the outer Oort cloud of our solar system. Okay. Now to our show.
Good evening. Are you wondering if the UFO phenomenon is real?
Are you wondering who is flying the UFOs in our skies?
Are you wondering if aliens are really abducting people?
Then you need to read this book.
The book is titled Who They Are and What They're Up To.
Find out the true identity of the aliens.
Learn a very brief history of the UFO cover-up.
Find out where the aliens are hiding.
Find out why our government is in league with them.
Learn about their bizarre hybrid breeding program.
Find out why their technology is 13,000 years ahead of ours.
The reference section of this book alone is worth the price.
Again, that was Who They Are and What They're Up To by Leslie and Stephen Shaw.
Now available on Amazon and coming soon in the Spanish and Czech languages.
And soon to be in English and Spanish audiobook.
With a new foreword by fellow author and abductee Karen Wilkinson.
Again, that was Who They Are and What They're Up To by Leslie and Stephen Shaw, now available on Amazon. And welcome to our show, everyone. Abductions 101, UFOs and the Paranormal Connection. I'm your host, Leslie Shaw, and this is
co-host Stephen Shaw.
And we have a wonderful guest for tonight that we're going to introduce now. This is Noelle Rowland, the host of the Creepy Confidential podcast. Yeah. And what are your other things you would like to mention as far as your introduction, my dear?
Oh, no, it's pretty simple. I talk about cryptids, cults, conspiracies, and otherworldly creepy. I also author some campfire stories that are inspired by my history and my research of my podcast material. So I don't have crazy things I do.
This is right up our alley. We love all things strange on this our podcast.
Same.
Because we have our theories about the aliens flying in our skies, but we connect them to the cryptids as well.
Right.
Which makes sense that they would kind of be one big picture in my opinion. Like how do you get these? How do you get these creatures, these beings that have either managed to not be seen, not have, nobody's caught one like that, that kind of thing. I would think that those technologies and cryptids also, I think, go hand in hand.
Yeah, it was straining credulity that Bigfoot could be just an animal that's eluded us, because you have to have a breeding population of at least 100 animals to have, and more if you want a really healthy, viable population. And they're seen so many different places all over the U.S. where they just pop up, and here we are, and then disappear. And
they're like little one-off stories.
One of these populations by now,
Like we shouldn't, if they've been here this long, we should kind of run out of them. Unfortunately, if they didn't have a large pool to keep it going, to keep that varying types. If that doesn't exist, you would think they'd be long gone, or can they live for 1,000 years? I mean, whoa, that's crazy to think.
Our previous guest, who's been in 2 different branches of the military, anyways, he's had run-ins with Bigfoot, both as a boy and as a man in the military, and
as a Marine.
So he's had some pretty interesting things to say about like how big they are, and depending on what sometimes they smell, sometimes they don't. But he definitely believes that there's definitely a paranormal definitely associated, and even in an ET association with them too, especially because they drain batteries. They basically just drain batteries.
His last
very paranormal.
We had him on a year. Yeah. We had him on a year ago, and he told us a harrowing experience with a Bigfoot, and then we had him back on, and he had since had another one, and in this third experience of his, he had 2 phone cameras set up, and one of them was suddenly in Bigfoot is right there standing in the gap in this fence, and he can see it, and one camera drains out of power, and he grabs the other one, and that one drains out of power. So
that's wild.
Yeah, it's one of these, and we've heard this before from people, where Bigfoot has the same capability to drain our electronics as UFOs do.
Paranormal.
And so,
we see a connection
ghosts
between them.
Do the same thing. You run into some sort of entity, which you don't know really what you're messing with. They do the same thing. It's all in the same wheelhouse.
Right. So now, Noelle, either you probably have had guests on that had, Bigfoot or cryptid experiences, and we'd love to hear from you, like what either you've had or
what are your
interesting things, especially if you have things about like the mantis. If any people have come on talking about they've seen or interacted with the mantids.
What's
We're
crazy
really curious
is
about them.
I guess my love of the world that like both of us are like all of us are very interested in, it started more of an interest reading about like Egyptology and mummies and what they believed in, and that whole thing. But growing up in Wisconsin and being in the northern, I was in the northern woods a lot in my grandparents' cabin. I never I never saw anything, which you think you would, but other than bears, like who knows? But Grandpa always used that as a method to keep me from wandering, was to tell me that there's Yeti. He would say specifically Yeti.
Don't let the Yeti get you.
Don't let the Yeti. Yeah, he said if you go too far, there's Yeti in the woods. The Yeti's going to get you. And it's like I think that starts as something funny, but it had to come from somewhere. In my opinion, it had to come from somewhere. But I don't ever remember. I can't say I've ever seen a creature that I didn't recognize out in the woods somewhere, or something like a Yeti or a Bigfoot. I wish I could. I'm kind of like looking for that moment.
It'll happen,
right? Like I don't want to rush it. I feel like it's one of those kind of things. Because now within my world of being curious, and now I have this awesome outlet where I get to speak with people. I'm hoping that I can at least get a chance to maybe be in an area where I might have that chance. Because I only recently learned about that there might be an odor, very pungent odor. And that they're kind of in more certain areas. And I really hope that that's the case. Now, when it comes to the skies, I have seen a craft, but I think we might have touched on that when we spoke.
Oh, you've seen a UFO? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, and I was very little. I was probably between 3rd and 5th grade, somewhere around there. And old enough to know, like I'm old enough to know, yes, I see something. Yes, I'm not imagining things, like that kind of thing. And I was always a very kind of an older soul. I always acted older when I was little. And it was in Paris, Texas. And there's a big, a water tower those towns always have these oval water towers that sit really high in the sky. It said Paris across the side. And we were we didn't live in out in the woods. We lived in a city inside Paris. And my mom and I were driving, probably to go to the park or something. And we turned where now the water tower was just out front of us. And at the very top, but kind of at a diagonal, you could see this shape where it's almost like a disc that would be facing sideways.
Like a cigar shape sometimes.
Almost like the graphic. You have a graphic behind you. Imagine that, but tilted. So when you're looking at it, it would look more like a cigar.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I remember as a little kid looking up, what is that? Curious. And I look over at my mom and her eyes are as big as saucers.
They're saucer shaped, right?
Yeah, they are saucer shaped and they're only there straight at me. Yeah. And I think she's looking at me and we're looking at each other. And I think in her mind, she's like, there's no way this little kid can see what I'm seeing. And all of a sudden it just took off. Faster than anything that a normal craft has to kind of gain momentum and then kind of that kind of thing.
Like Spaceballs. I call it ludicrous speed.
Exactly. It's like it went into that and it just went off to the side and disappeared and it was gone.
So you said this was inside the city, Paris, Texas, because you were living and roughly about what year would that be?
So I'm let's see. So if I was, how old are you in they'll say the 4th grade? Let's go in average. How old are you?
4th grade, you're about 8 years old.
About 8 years old. So that means it probably would have been 91, 92. I was born in 83. At the end. I was at the end of 83 though. So I'm kind of guessing. It was probably 91, 92.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where is Paris located in Texas?
Geographically.
Geographically. Yeah. So northeast. And it's kind of right along, there's the Panhandle, and then it goes east and it's flat, and there's the Red River. It's just below that, almost headed out towards Texarkana. If you just drive straight east, you hit Texarkana. We used to go there all the time. So that's how I remember it. Mm-hmm. So it's right along there. You're in Tornado Alley, that kind of thing.
Stephen's second UFO, he was getting his car from the valet and right on the beach. In this fancy restaurant, and a USO rose up out of the ocean, and Stephen asked the guy, says, "Did you see that?" And which is an unnecessary question because his eyes were just like the saucers you described. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
because my
it was at nighttime, about 9 o'clock, 9:30 after having a dinner on the way. I still had to make a 150 mile drive home.
Yeah.
So it was no fun to do that. But it's just like, it was during the time of the baseball playoffs. So I know it was in October, and it was in 2005. So yeah, it turned out that area of Malibu is a real hot spot for USO sightings. I mean, it's not uncommon at all. But at this point, you weren't even thinking about writing a book. So
yeah, at least you had something to talk about on the 150 mile road,
Yeah, it's just, my family and I have had so many strange, according to most people, strange things happen to us, together and apart throughout my lifetime, that you just get to accept it at a certain point.
His whole family were, except his sister for some reason, but the rest of the family were all abductees. And by the tall gray, his brother saw him in a tall gray in his bedroom one time, right before he blacked out, and that's
1982. Yeah,
that's when we realized what the family. We weren't sure what the family was dealing with before that.
It's been the same entities for 4 generations. They just disguise themselves a little differently. For me, it was a blue-white being, same size, 6.5 feet tall. My uncle was
like a gray, though.
But shaped, yeah, of course, yes.
Yeah,
but all lit up white.
For my uncle, was a tall black man with a red fez. My brother was just a tall gray.
Finally saw them as they really are,
Yeah, I remember. So for those of you who are watching or listening, I've had the pleasure of interviewing the Shaws over on my channel, and that was the first time I had ever spoken with anybody who had that many interactions and had any interactions at all that weren't in a sky or in a water. So it was very interesting to hear you speak of that and have such detail. I can barely remember, certain things, but it's odd that those types of, I can remember that day when I saw the UFO, and I was a kid. I was a kid, and I
wedge into your memory well,
right. Like what makes you hang on to something like that? And it's almost like a way, it's important. You need to remember this.
I can tell you the physiological, what it is. It's the thalamus gland, which is near the hypothalamus, which lays down memories, long-term memories, combination of emotion with memory. So when it ingrains, if there's a lot of emotion associated with it, it tends to lay down a deeper deer track, and that gets underlined. It gets underlined. So basically, it gets literally carved into your brain, but it's always laid down with emotion. So the stronger the emotion, and generally with people that are younger, they tend to have stronger and more cleaner emotion, don't tend to not have as many drugs in them too. So it's something that gets laid down more cleanly. Okay, so that's why it is. It's laid down through the thalamus and the caudate putamen and areas, but which have been confirmed by the U.S. government. We know the areas of the brain that psychics and remote viewers and people who do automatic writing. We know the 2 areas of the brain that are hyperdeveloped in people that they actually recruit for the government. It's called the caudate putamen, which is around the thalamus, and then above that is called the parahippocampal gyrus, which spans over both globes of the brain. And those areas are across the board. And it tends to show up more in people that are Scottish background and, interestingly, Cherokee Indian. And it's just funny that these people, they tend to gravitate to this stuff, and they have the ability.
Well, and abductees, they did PET scans and MRIs of their brains, the government. And
same thing.
Apparently they have the same kind of brains, too. So I think this is one of the criteria that the aliens use for choosing their abductees.
Right.
If you're, in other words, if you're putting out a signal, just like a regular signal, like a single frequency signal, they're not going to be interested. But if you're sending and receiving 3 or 4 different channels, it's going to attract their attention. It just means that they can communicate more easily, and also they have more use for us, especially our genetics. It's just it's a necessity. The way people say, "Can you describe it in one word?" I say, "Yes, necessity. They need us."
Right.
Yeah, that's our theory.
Yeah, but it's interesting, because it makes it's a science behind the thought. It's not just well, that's this. Right. Well, you have to prove, that's the whole point of this whole thing, is that if you have no proof or you're just jarring on about something, where if you can prove that this XYZ makes ABC happen, I think that's where, and for myself, I'm a very analytical and scientific person. I have a hard time with like fantastical things and like making my brain bend to that. If I can't prove it, then I don't believe that it's true, which is
Thank you. Me too.
Which is
it's
crazy.
Healthy to be a skeptic. It is, because if you don't ask questions, if you're just a debunker, that means you don't ask questions. You just say, well, I don't believe in that, but you don't have any reason to back up why you don't believe in it. If you can back things up and tell me why, and tell me the scientific, like in Luis Elizondo's book, Imminent, there's a whole chapter devoted to the things such as how the 6 observables in UFOs can be explained, and also to how the government has spent millions and millions of dollars on researching and actually recruiting people that have these areas of the brain. I mean, they actually are putting physical hard proof behind some of these things that people say, oh, well, you say you're psychic, but okay, now we can back it up. You know, people that actually have these, they actually do have different abilities.
And I have a hard, I'm sure if anybody who's heard me speak or, about, because paranormal is my first love. I was always very interested in ghosts and what goes bump in the night, that sort of thing. And then the creatures came later. But for me, that's the first thing you run into is you hear about mediums, and you do hear about automatic writers or even people that can tell the future, things like that. I have a very hard time with it. And I have spoken about that, but I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying I have a very hard time with it. But I like knowing that there could be a reason why why a person has that. Now, do I think everybody that says they have those things, or do I think that? No, I think a lot of them are charlatans. But but it does exist. There's no way, like, things just line up too easily to the point where your hair stands on end, because you're like, there's no way you could have known that.
And we found it in the abduction community. We found the same kind of thing. It's like every single time I interviewed an abductee, somehow they had a psychic power. They were either a medium or a psychic healer, or just could pick up thoughts from other people, or have little flashes of precognition or something.
I look at it more kind of from the standpoint, it's a vestigial ability that some humans do have. It's kind of like the appendix of the brain. There's certain people. There's a reason that we have the appendix, right? It had a more of a function in in Homo sapien, not necessarily Homo sapiens sapien, but in Homo sapien.
Right.
So we're looking at that there is, and believe me, there's a lot of charlatans out there. There are a lot of people that just want to believe, and there's the ability for people to actually be able to do it at will. That's rare, but like I say, now we can track the people that have more of the ability and more of the, like remote viewers. Real remote viewers can actually separate their astral body in a conscious physical state, and they can actually go places. And it's rare, but it does occur.
And
it has to do with the chakras, I think. I apologize, Darren. I didn't mean to step on you.
Yeah, no.
You buzz your chakras open, and suddenly you have those abilities.
Well, it's a combination of things. Yeah.
And I've never gotten into to learning about that. I guess I have, some people have a set of beliefs, and I do. I grew up in Wisconsin, so I grew up in a Lutheran background. It's kind of frowned upon if you start reading about things like that. But in a sense where I'm still curious and I want to know, how is it that this happens? Where are these people? Why do people get abducted? And now it makes more sense when you maybe it would make more sense that they would want to interact with people that have a certain set of skills they can use to communicate, not necessarily to marionette themselves, which maybe they will, but it just makes more sense. It also makes sense why I haven't been abducted, because my brain's messed up. So
they take him.
I have a faulty unit
right next to me sleeping. They take him.
Well, they have, yes.
But I have had no inkling of it. I think they just go, "Oh no, not her. Yeah. We don't need her.
We're gonna leave her alone on this."
Oh no, that DNA.
We don't want that.
Yeah, one of the things that for sure has been found that it's most common for them to follow bloodlines. Yes. Family bloodlines, not just one-offs. One-offs are unusual. If you get a hunter, they get a hunter. Generally, they're like a Germanic background, males of Germanic background are the ones that tend to go missing the most and never turn up again, that are hunters that are into wildlife. But so there is a bloodline connection. There's a familial bloodline connection, and it does seem to be primarily Caucasians of Northern European background, high percentage that are the ones that either are abducted or are never found again.
I wonder if we see when we talk about statistics, you say it's a higher percentage of Caucasian and this this particular background. But I also feel that those numbers, in my opinion, they may be skewed because a lot of cultures, we'll talk about maybe a lot of African American cultures, you can't speak about that in the house. That is right. You're treated very differently, or enter thing here. Certain houses like that, or maybe another culture like a Native American where you can't describe certain things or you'll be in trouble. So I wonder if I wish we had where everybody would give what's happening, because I feel like there's so much more information that people just won't talk about it.
And Native Americans commonly will talk about Bigfoot. We met a couple just the year before last that were at the Big Bear. And
Athabascans. They were Athabascans, and that particular race of
North American
Indian are sometimes targeted by the abduction phenomenon too. Actually, I've heard of at least three scenarios of it. Yeah.
Yeah, this guy's met Bigfoot a couple times. One last time he was riding on a horse, and Bigfoot was eye level with him, and he was on a 15-hand horse. So Bigfoot was about 8.5 feet tall. We're hearing the further north you go, there's like a scientific formula for this. Animals do better the bigger they are, the further north they go, because of the heat, conservation of heat for the body. So that's why you get your Bigfoots that are 10 feet tall, whatever, in Alaska, but the skunk ape will be like around 7 feet tall around Florida.
They've been topped at 12 feet.
And
6 feet across the shoulders.
The big guys, like the Shaqs, like the Shaquille O'Neals of Bigfoot, So.
You're in trouble when the trees have been jerked out of the ground, turned upside down, and stuffed back into the ground.
Yeah. There's going to be a problem here. But it makes, for people who maybe have a hard time, or don't understand that science part of it, even if you look from a typical, a normal catalog of mammals, the bigger creatures live north. The bears are ginormous. You have moose, you have elk. These creatures are huge. The birds are big. Everything's big. Sure, you have small ones, but the majority of them, of the big creatures, live that way. So maybe if someone
the halibut they pull out of the water up in Alaska, they're like 200 pounds.
No, they get up to 800 pounds.
They're delicious.
Okay. That was a small one.
But there's the heat conservation. It's advantageous for you to be bigger the further north you are as a mammal.
Just for survival. If you're out, if you are living out of the water, or whatever, a mammal. And I think people that maybe hear the first part of what we were talking about, that doesn't make sense. This might help. Is that think about the huge creatures that live there. They used to be even bigger. You talk about the dire wolf and things like that. I mean, ginormous. The moose that they talk about are, you can't even wrap your noodle around it.
The stilt bear.
The stilt bear was wiped out from. It's one of the large animals of the plains that was wiped out due to the Younger Dryas comet impact of 12,850 years ago.
Yeah,
and the stilt bear was like a grizzly bear, but with extra long legs and arms. It stood up on its hind legs. It stood
14 feet.
14 feet tall. It's just ridiculous.
That's
if you met it, just lay down and die right there because you have no chance.
It's how when kids draw animals and they'll have these big long legs or really tall heads or something. That's how that's how my brain tried to figure that one out. Like a crayon on a table, trying to figure out this huge bear. I have so much to learn about creatures like that, about when they talk about, when they say aliens or UFOs. I feel like I have just now started to dip my toe and learn about that, and just, some accidental, some through meeting fellow enthusiasts and authors, things like that. So I feel like I have so much to learn.
And the thing is, the thing is that being as you're just starting your journey, into learning about this like we were just talking earlier, be conscious that there's going to be a lot of BS out there too.
Well,
a lot of misinformation, and a lot of basically people that are just trying to get your money, or just don't really know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, because myself, I'm very skeptical myself, but I know what's happened to myself and my family. I mean, when those coins were magnetized in my pocket, okay, in 1979, after I missing time, and my dad could pick up the coins 6 hours after I met the being.
Yeah, he was abducted for sure.
Right. That's physical proof. When we had things happening in two places, 350 miles apart, people experiencing the same thing at the same time, those bells in the wall. Yeah. Okay. That was a target of the family bloodline. Okay.
And it followed the family from Germany to England to California. Whereas the haunting phenomenon seems to be locked to a place more,
Right. More or less. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And I think there usually are departed loved ones hauntings.
Yeah.
I mean, the aliens also, do things to you in the dream state, in the astral realm. They'll abduct people, sometimes just astrally. If they just have a message for you, they don't have to physically take you. But people will feel like their astral bodies vibrating, and then suddenly they're astrally on the ship.
I was accosted by two this past December the 1st.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just as real as we're sitting right here talking. I was in this room with some people, and it was just kind of like, regular low light, but it was, everything was fine. And these two big white guys, one was probably maybe 7 foot tall. I'm thinking maybe they were actually grays. Well, they pushed me up against the wall, grabbed me by the neck, and then it was just like a curtain came down over me, a curtain, a physiological curtain, where all of a sudden I went docile. And they started looking in my mouth and asking me questions, and then they let me go. And I thought, I should get out of here. And then they came to me again and pushed me up again. It did the same thing. It kind of turned off my nervous system. And then I was able to ask the smaller guy some questions about who he was, and he was telling me what they were doing. Like they were examining me, but I couldn't get his name. I can't remember his name. But this was just as plain as day. Physically pushed up against the wall and looking at me and examining me and checking my eyes
in your dream, like you were.
It was my astral body.
Yeah, it's sort of like the dream.
It's different.
In between,
it's different.
Yeah, the astral thing. Stephen and I studied how to do it. And what you do is you open your heart chakra big, and you'll start to spontaneously astral project. But you're more awake than in the dream. And everything is twilight. And when you're dreaming, you're actually your astral body is out of your physical body, but you're kind of wrapped in this dream cocoon. And that's one of the ways of going astral, where you can actually astral project travel, is as soon as you're aware that you're dreaming, you can actually order the dream away. And you'll find yourself
control
floating above your physical body.
The thing is, we dream when we're in our astral bodies. Okay. Yeah. You have to separate. And I frequently will find myself just hovering above my body in my bed. Okay.
Above 2 feet above his bed.
Well, a foot or 2 feet, depends. I don't usually go that high. Okay. And then I'll come back in my body. Or the other night I got up out of bed to go pee at 6 a.m, and I really had to go, but I got out in my astral body. So I got out of bed, went to the door, and I couldn't open it. And
he forgot his body.
I was thinking, what the heck? And so
I didn't put my body back on.
I turned around. I turned back. I turned back around. I saw my body. I was just laying there in the bed. I said, "Oh, damn! Did I just die?" I said, "Oh no, I'm just in my astral body." So then I just lay back down, and then I got back in my regular body, and then I got up and went to the bathroom. But
it's like a garment.
No, this is what we do, but it's some people are just more aware of it and have more control. I mean, I can do it if I want to. Okay, I can set myself up to do it. And one of the important things is to do, like Leslie was saying, to become aware when you're dreaming and let's say you see somebody, you're pushing somebody, a friend, like in a shopping cart in a market. Which wouldn't happen, right?
Something weird,
a friend, say, okay,
or you see Aunt Flo and she's been dead for 20 years.
That's when you have the chance to become conscious in your dream. Being conscious in your dream. That okay, I must be dreaming. I am dreaming. Then you can actually force yourself to look at the palms of your hands, or you just jump, or you say, "Dream, be gone," and then you'll end up in your room. Okay, frequently you'll
floating
end up
above
in the room,
your physical body.
right? And then you can say, like, wherever you want to go. See, the astral body is very emotional. It goes with what your emotions want. So if your real true desire is to go scuba diving, which Leslie used to do, you'll go to the astral ocean and go scuba diving. If you want to go to Fiji, I've gone to Fiji. She's gone to Egypt. I tried to go to Antarctica once, and I got turned away. Okay.
Yeah.
I got turned. No, you're not coming here.
There are remote viewers blockading Antarctica and keeping people from finding out what's actually going on there.
I would say it lines up with everyone's theory that clearly something is happening there.
It's just a different frequency. It's a different vibrational frequency of who we are. Okay, we're not just physical beings. We have souls.
Talking about the astral body.
Yeah, we're talking about, but I'm just talking about, like, we think about being in the physical body all the time, but we have our souls, we have our spirits, we have our astral body. These are all parts of us. Okay, we're all connected together, but we can separate them.
I wanted to ask Noelle, did you ever read that report put out by Dr. Melba Ketchum? She's the one in charge of the Sasquatch Genome Project. And she came out with this report in 2013, and I'd heard a lot about it, but I finally just actually read it the other day all the way through, And
well, sometimes,
then I had to have him read it because I couldn't understand it, So I had him read it, and apparently Bigfoot is at least half human.
Right.
Oh, it makes sense. I mean, they're
mitochondrial,
kind of humanoid in their nature, I guess, what they look like.
Genetically, the mitochondrial coming from the mother is human,
pure human. Yep.
Right. Now,
and then the from the father's side of the
nuclear
genome,
DNA
is an unknown primate. So I think this proves that Bigfoot is not an intelligent animal that breeds normally. I think somebody is genetically engineering these things. And the somebody is using them. I think they use them as sentries to guard the entrances.
Well, as an example, chimpanzee cannot breed with a gorilla. Gorilla can't. Chimpanzees can't breed with monkeys because they're too different. Okay, so there had to be some genetic manipulation for that to even occur in the first place.
Exactly. So it's not like they can have sex and create offspring.
The 111 samples they've studied so far, between blood and hair and other tissues, they say, okay, they're calling it right now. It's being recognized as an unknown species, and they're calling it Homo sapiens
cognatus.
Cognatus, right?
And so it's actually been given its own genetic classification, and it's been accepted by the International Zoological Organization that keeps track of all the living creatures on the planet. And so it's official. Bigfoot is real.
We know that anyway.
And
I think everybody knew that, but
knew it. Yeah. What are we call? Because otherwise, you have to call like 11,000 people insane.
Right? Like, there's no way they're all wrong. Yeah, that's just not scientifically possible.
Lying liars.
Yeah. No. I think it would be. It'd just be. It makes sense to finally let it happen that, yes, we figured it out. These are of this classification, or like they finally said, yes, we have seen alien activity, UFO activity. Finally have the military members that came forward. It just made sense.
Yes.
Like it finally, like there's no way all these people are incorrect or nuts.
Right.
Right.
And it's been recorded on our best, radar kind of machines, the most
sonar radar.
Well, it's called the Aegis machines, or it's their new radar systems as of like 2004. And so it was fairly advanced, and the Tic Tac incident, they captured it on the Aegis.
And I think that's the part, is that it's not some person in their backyard with a weird engineered piece of equipment. These are military machines equipped with military grade, tracking systems. Yeah. And now, now you have to say that they're all incorrect. If you
and they can pop into infrared and back out. So
Yeah.
And the Aegis picked it up moving at 3,600 miles an hour. And of course, that's what we see, right? We see these. My first UFO was just a round white light in the sky. And I was trying, well, what the heck is that? I'm thinking, and then it takes off at what had to be 20,000 miles an hour or something,
But that was
what happened when you were a girl.
Yeah, zoom away.
It was exactly like that. You're like, it's physics would tell you that a normal craft can't do that. You're gonna have to turn on some sort of jet power or something without it literally doing the space balls. Just, I love that. I'm gonna keep that.
Ludicrous speed.
I heard this from Miss Leslie Shaw, and I am because I when I speak to other fellows, it's like if you have something to kind of, even if it's light, make it lighthearted, but it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. Yeah.
Yep.
There's no way.
And we know that the Weather Service guy too. There was a big Michigan
sighting
in
sighting
94, I think it was, in March of 94.
2004.
This 300 different people called law enforcement to report a UFO flying through their backyard.
Right.
And then these things flew all the way across the city part that looks like a mitten, the part.
Oh yeah.
and then it out onto the lake, and people all along the lake were reporting it as well. And there were so many reports to law enforcement that law enforcement called the National Weather Service station that was right there at that part of the lake. Mm-hmm. And he turned his radar onto these things, and he said that he captured them going 72,000 miles an hour. And that's the fastest I've ever heard of them being clocked,
And of course, and he ended up losing his job. He had to move because...
Yeah. Well, he didn't lose his job, but he was being
harassed,
targeted for, like people making fun of him all the time, and he thought it was going to be bad for his career to stay there. So,
but people don't understand that is that there's a big reason why a lot of people either don't want to retell their stories, or they don't want to tell it at all to begin with, because this is exactly what happens. You get these old school stories, because I like my cryptids. You can see, I've got Flatwoods, the original kind of Flatwoods here, and things like that. Those people, eventually, they just don't want to talk about it anymore because people have harassed them so badly.
They've said it enough, I guess.
Yeah, like what is it, Woody Derenberger? This whole story about him and going to Lanulos and his story. People think, oh, he's a crazy man or such and such, but it's too specific. But eventually people like that don't want to tell their stories because they're treated like they're nuts, like absolutely checked out nuts.
And they're tired of it probably, after the
I can tell you by doing the show and writing this book, and not, that a lot of people think that I'm nuts.
Oh yeah, and, our family, some of our family members.
It's just like, you just basically don't want, it's like you talk about it, if a person is on the same page, they've had unusual experiences, then fine. But so many even say, oh, they're demons. They just say, oh, they're just demons. If you're a Christian, they're demons, and the UFOs aren't real. They're actually demons or spirits, and you cannot. Again, there are a lot of people who don't want to talk about it because of their Christian background.
But I think it's very, because I've also run into those. I've run into those conversations, and I've run into the "you shouldn't be talking about this at all" conversations. And it's like, at least when it comes to, I'll say, extraterrestrial beings or other beings, how naive is it to consider that God made just one type? Like what? He stopped at humans? Like
done. Perfect.
Perfect. Well, which we know that is not true. So why would he can do it all, say it all, make it all. He can beautiful things that we can't even put into our brains. And you mean to tell me he just stopped at this meat suit? I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's the pinnacle of arrogance too.
Yeah.
Yes.
We are white, we are the best, kind of thing. Be surprised how many people just think that, that, oh, God made his son, Jesus in his image, and that was it. He didn't bother with doing anything creative in the ocean, in the deep sea ocean, making things bioluminesce and, getting creative. They didn't give nature any credit for being, adaptability and things like that. It's just like, come on. Whatever can exist will exist.
There are creatures way more beautiful than humans. No offense to my fellow humans, but there are, like you mentioned, like things in the ocean that we haven't even found yet, but things that we have found. Oh my gosh, we can't even fathom how like amazing and how in awe we should be. And it's like, yes, he made it in the way that Jesus looked that way because that's what we needed to see. Like, he can do whatever he wants, or whatever, however you want to paint it. I agree. It is so arrogant to think that he couldn't create a really cool being that isn't a human.
And they say power corrupts, and ultimate power corrupts completely. So,
absolutely,
absolute power corrupts. So we have all the 7 deadly sins. People think, oh well, perfection, but you know what? If we're human beings, we got the 7 deadly sins. Depends on how much you have and how much you don't have. But they are there.
Humans are pretty terrible. Like, there's some cool ones out there, but human, like people with the big P, we're awful. Destroy everything.
Oh yeah.
And like, I don't. When you hear about these other beings or creatures, they're like, well, how come we haven't ever seen them again? I don't blame them. First of all, like.
Don't go there. They're crazy.
Don't go there. Like that whole plot of land, they're absolutely out to lunch because they're going to kill you and they're going to stick you on a wall somewhere. Like,
they're going to dissect you and find out, exactly. This is like, we are horrible.
We're
really.
Horrible.
If you look at our history, it doesn't matter which culture you look at, except for maybe the Buddhists, but up there in Tibet, but almost every single culture has enslaved people and have tortured and have just gone down the whole thing, divide and conquer, rape, pillage, and plunder.
That's a greed,
if you look, it's like the movie The Fifth Element, where she comes back, she saved the earth, and she, gets a short course on basically the history of humanity. It almost kills her. She says, I can't believe I'm going to save you people.
It's not worth it. It's not worth saving. Yes. And I know that is terrible to say, but it's honest. And I
just sort of like move in, use up all the resources of an area, and then turn it into a desert, and then move on.
Yeah, we do.
We're just big termites, and that's why I don't blame these other beings that are hiding from us, that were either here before, kind of like our conversation before, which was really interesting to think about. Every time there was like a big catastrophic event, like they kind of go into safe space and then maybe have to start all over again. It's like if they've been here that long, they got to see really just how bad it is. Even
and their message to us
is always the same.
Every single time they get a message across to us, they'll mentally connect with a bunch of children in Zimbabwe or something. This message is always that take better care of the planet and stop using nukes.
It's always the same message. And why would they care so much? They care because they live here.
Yeah, that's what we think. We think
we're 8 billion noisy idiots that are living in their attic on top of them.
Obnoxious,
like we are what is that called? Like subletting. We are like we are those.
Right.
Just on the surface.
They don't want us to know that they're there because number one, they're also using us too. They need our genetics. They need our DNA. So they don't want us necessarily to know that they are us. Okay. But just a more advanced version of us that didn't lose their technology 12,850 years ago. Right. They don't want us to know that, where you're going to say, what kind of a lawsuit you'd have against, where's Uncle Charlie go to? You've been stealing, how many babies do I have? There's a person who wrote the second edition forward for our book.
Karen Wilkinson,
she's been abducted throughout her life, and all her family's been in the military, right? And she's been introduced to her 4 hybrid children. Okay. Yeah. And her opinion, and she's very Christian, but her opinion is that they're not here for our benefit.
They're soulless demons that are
they live here subsurface. That's what they do. They've been here in previous civilizations. They are us. They can breed with us, but they are here. They're self-serving. They're for either to reintegrate with us or to take us over. Okay. So she has a very
she has a darker view on it. Whereas starseeds, we've had starseeds on our show that say, "Oh no, they're here from the Pleiades, which isn't a place; it's a constellation,
Right?
And they're here for our good and our they're going to help awaken us."
He says no.
Yeah.
No, that's Star Trek.
Yeah.
That's Star Trek airy fairy stuff. Sorry.
And they call themselves a federation, just like right out of Star Trek, too,
It's her actions. It's what they're doing, How many times I've had missing time, and my brother, and...
They're not awakening him. They're putting these guys to sleep.
They did with Karen Wilkinson. She's been awakened on ships many times.
Well, I mean, my point is
some people do get awakened.
But it's not like a spiritual awakening where they're helping you. In fact, I think they kind of dampen the ability of people to astral project. People they're taking regularly, I think they try and keep them from astral projecting so they don't really learn the truth about what's happening to them,
It makes, I mean, that makes sense. You don't want to kind of let them learn how the soup is made,
Right.
Yep.
Keep them together, keep our secrets safe. And see, I've always thought, I hear these stories, even one that that you've mentioned where something and multiple times has come to you. It is, to me, that is terrifying.
Of course it is.
I don't want to say I'm a fearful person, but I am, like that sounds like somebody invading my space and I'm unable to do anything about it.
Serious.
Which is probably why they make scary movies that involve those things. Which I try not to watch those. But I guess, but I'm still interested in it. You hear about.
Sure.
I think I mentioned when we reached out was that I've been researching my own, like the quiet zone area that's here with a big, huge satellite dish, and they're trying to send messages out with that.
Oh, the SETI program is trying something over there.
Well, it's been there forever. What is that satellite dish called? Of course, now I can't. The Green Bank Telescope. That's what it's called. And
right.
And it's in West Virginia. It has. At first, I thought, okay, they're just like looking into outer space and they're trying to like track the stars, yada yada. And then you realize that it's like a government-funded program to send different types of things out there. I'm like, what happens if something comes back? Like. What do we do? I guess that's again how they make movies, but only this is factual. Like how do you feel? I guess for this, I know you're interviewing me, but now this is someone I can talk to somebody who feels about that. Like they're sending messages out or sending these like bursts out there that could hurt a craft or something. Like do you feel like that's going to make them angry, or this could get worse, or make the activity higher? There's so many things.
Yeah, they're probably. We do get this feeling that they're angry. Like Stephen's encounters seemed like they're getting angrier, and our friend Paula and another friend Jean, Jean has been sensing the same kind of thing, that people are angry. The abductors are angry, and we're not really sure why exactly, but we're wondering if they'll run out of patience for us too, because. Maybe they'll just finally just say, okay, kill half of them.
Like I've had enough. Just hold the field, which is, again, I try not to live with the thought of that, like the movies are going to come to real, but it sounds like if they're really out there, how do you know that they're not bad? How do you know that they're good?
Right.
There's too many types.
They're doing some worrying things. That's the thing. We kind of monitor their actions.
Yeah, always.
And don't listen to what they say. They're telling their starseeds, "Oh, it's good and we're wonderful and we're here in peace." But
which should be
and then they flood them with feelings of love and because they have that power over us. But when you look at their actions, they steal you, impregnate you. Then 4 months later, they steal you again and steal the fetus.
Yeah.
And they do this to you multiple times. All your children stolen away to God knows what fate. And
some don't get put back. Some do.
And that's when it's good. That's when they put you back. Sometimes we think they don't put you back.
It's like like when people have a stock of a herd of cow, and they do the same thing. You get the females impregnated. You wait till a certain stage, rinse and repeat. And if they don't work out, you either don't bring the cow back to the field and they become a hamburger, or they get put out to pasture because maybe their owners do have a sense of, well, let Bessie live. I guess, is that what they're doing to humans?
We can also see what our actions have been since World War II. The Russians and the Americans and even the Chinese now quite a bit. Our actions, we always want to find something, a technology, and weaponize it. That's one thing that we do. We're really good at weaponizing things, right? So not for the good, but make it for how can you control better, and guard your secrets. So right now, the way Leslie and I see it is that the United States government, at least, we're the ones that are basically reneging on the deal for disclosure. We're the ones that are saying, no, we don't. We want to keep on getting technology. We want to keep this whole thing where we'll acknowledge that UFOs are real, but we don't know what they're about. We have no clue. So they're basically saying nothing, but what they're doing is that they're continuing to take technology and continuing to let people be taken. Okay.
Right.
So, they're letting it's like this evil pact they've made,
Again, humans.
Yep.
Yeah, it's humans.
Good old humans stabbing each other in the back for a little bit of alien technology, right?
And like Leslie said too,
Eisenhower. Money.
Yeah, Eisenhower wouldn't have sat down at a table back in the 50s and Truman made deals with tentacle monsters. He made deals with humans. That's why
looks like humans.
Yeah. Basically the Nordics look just like humans, just a little bit taller and bigger eyes, but they're pale skinned. The Nordics, the Greys, as far as we know, the Greys have just been here longer than us. They're just a more mutated version of the human beings. They could have gone subsurface 200,000 years ago.
Or sometimes I see it this way. We know that the Younger Dryas comet was such a devastating impact that it would be a really good reason to move underground, to try and escape it, right?
Right.
But so 13,000 years have passed. I see the Greys as maybe being the ones that couldn't keep their technology going to keep the lights on.
Right.
And they
have to go
they
back
had more
out.
pressure on their species to mutate away from us.
Therefore, the bigger eyes, the less hair, things like that.
But the Nordics, we think the technology they managed to keep the lights on, and they've only mutated away from us a little bit. But they have there's a book called The Hair of the Alien where an alien left behind a hair a couple hairs in this encounter, and he had it tested, and the hair was clear. And there is no human type of hair that's clear. So
no, polar bears are the only one that comes to mind.
Yeah, but humans, it's an unknown type, Yeah. So it proves that A, they're human, and B, that they're mutants.
Well, it tested out Gaelic, Basque, and a subset of the Chinese.
A weird human, but human.
So that's the genetic testing that came back with a very, very strange mix, which gets back to the thing about people from Scotland and from Ireland, that area. There's the legend of the Tuatha De Danann that went underground, larger, taller beings that went subsurface because there was a splitting of the two races. Actually, it was the same race, basically, but they split. But the thing is, like, when they talk about how the Codet Puttman is bigger and more active in people from Scotland and Gaelic. So you start to see, these things that add up.
And Basque. The Basques keep coming up again and again in the whole alien abduction thing. They're the highest percentage of people taken, if you break it into the races. Basque is number one. And they have the highest incident of Rh negative blood. And we know that's another factor for abduction because 4 out of 10 abductees are Rh negative, but only 1 out of 9 in the population is Rh negative.
Right.
So it skews more to Rh negative.
Same thing with green eyes, too.
And green eyes. 4 out of 10 abductees have green eyes. And green eyes are relatively rare. It's a recessive trait in humans.
Right.
So it's interesting
like
what
gingers.
They're kind of right. They're kind of, I think this is telling in that, if you were an alien from Arcturus and you needed human DNA, you probably wouldn't care what race, right? You know,
right?
But take a cross section.
But if these are a breakaway branch of the Caucasian race, like I suspect the Nordics are, then they would have all kinds of uses for human, Caucasian DNA, right?
Right. I know. So you're saying we're listing off all these things like traits, and you're like, green eyes are this and more common. Like, good. I got brown eyes. I got dark hair. You just leave me alone, Bill. Just leave me alone. I would like to read about you, and you're over there. I'm over here. We're good. Leave me alone.
Probably they will. But, there's still that 10% that are the other races,
Thanks
like
a lot.
the Athabascans. And Stephen has brown eyes. He doesn't have green eyes.
No. But, the Newmans, my great-grandparents that came from Germany, definitely German, okay? Then the Rowe family, German. Then my dad, German the Shaws, and even the Griffiths. But, so those are 4 bloodlines that are all from that area that have all had interactions with this old Glegley character, which is actually a tall gray. Okay, so we know now. Yeah,
Glegley. Yeah.
Glegley is one that when you had us on, I talked about that story.
That's probably where it went. And I read it. If it's in your book, I read it because I read the whole book.
So in our theory that if the aliens are the ones breeding Bigfoots, this opens the door to all of the other cryptids too. Like, why not? If they need a wolf man kind of creature, or they need a dog man, or a Mothman, or some of these other strange cryptids that people are seeing, like grays. I've heard of this. There's 2 reports I've heard where people have seen them in trees, and they're more like an arboreal creature. Their feet are more like hands. Yeah. And their hands, the fingers are much longer, and they're climbing up inside trees. So,
like a monkey,
they kind of make different types of grays. I think they're a genetically engineered race, and they make them. If they need them for arboreal work, they make the arboreal model. Or if they need them for underwater work, maybe then they're making the reptiloid ones. And so on.
That was the handler that actually Karen Wilkinson said her handler that used to pretend to be human eventually dropped his guard and just basically let her see him as he is, basically 6 foot tall reptilian.
A reptiloid,
with human type features, but the bigger eyes and the more shiny skin, very well defined muscles. And he had sex with her. So
yeah, and that's another thing too.
That's scary too.
They're having sex.
It's
with
very
us,
scary. Yeah.
And so they're having sex with us to get us pregnant. They can't be anything but human, right? If you're having sex
and it's working,
pregnant, it's because you're making love to a human.
If the sperm is penetrating the ovum, it has to be.
It has to match.
Material. Yeah. It has to be 99.997 the same. Otherwise, you end up throwing basically a mule, or it just doesn't take. That's why it's again their actions. Why are they stealing sperm? Why are they impregnating women? Guess what? They have a genetic need for it. Right? And they certainly don't want people to know about it, or they just think, oh well, that's just how do you know? Kind of thing. Or they sure.
I feel like speaking of cryptids, there is a super high concentration on the east side versus the west side of just the United States.
Yeah.
Specifically, I feel like where I am, and then there's like a square. It's really, you hear about all of the big ones are pretty much from this general part. And I'm like, why? Why are they all here? Is it because people were here first and then they worked their way over, so the stories are more concentrated, from a folklore way? But there's tons and tons, and they're so weird looking. But they all are. You can almost match them up with another type of creature.
They're pulling old DNA, like dog DNA, and mixing it with humans. And,
there's nothing that's completely original.
Yeah, people forget that there is a Russian doctor who in 1958 decided, well, let me see if I can make a 2-headed dog. Okay, so he surgically, and there is this famous film about that where he basically amputated the head off one dog and put it onto the other dog, so that dog only lived for like maybe 45 minutes to an hour. But he actually successfully, in 1958, made a two-headed dog. Doesn't that sound like the Greek myths? You know, the three heads, Cerberus. You know, we like to screw around with genetics. We do it right now. We've cloned the first sheep back in 1980s. You know, we have the power to do so much stuff right now that's not even being talked about. You know,
well, people only just now made it something that cloning was a thing. Like I was a vet tech in my previous life before working what I work now for a very long time. And I remember when I very first started, you never heard about cloning your pet. And you have to have a lot of money to do it. And then all of a sudden it got like, it was everywhere. Everybody wanted to like talk about it. And then usually once they saw the price point, they were like, no, but you could do it.
But if you're rich enough,
always about the money. Where
I believe Barbara Streisand had one of her dogs cloned. Yeah. I read about it somewhere.
You can have the same dog, but you'll never have the same like brain, like the way that they act. But they just want to look, you know.
But every cell is the same.
Yeah, and it's the same concept. Where if we, you know, we're poor, we don't make that much, and we're willing to spend the money on cloning Fluffy, well, then of course they're doing it at a much higher level. They're just giving us the technology so that they can, you know make sure it's working.
Notice how the whole argument or discussion, quote unquote discussion about cloning human beings, how it was like on the table for a while there, and then it's kind of gone silent. You haven't heard anything about it in the news. You know, it says, oh well, that wouldn't be ethical to do that. You know somebody's cloning human beings.
Doing
you know the people's been cloned. They're already doing it. They're, you know what? There's this whole underground business that's been happening in China since the 1920s. They have been taking, because with the eugenics stuff, like was really popular in Europe. But anyways,
it was
with eugenics and all that, there is the illegal organ trade, okay, where they kidnap people and steal their organs and sell them as replacements for people. But what they're doing now, they're actually growing organs either on animals, or they're basically, I think what they're doing, they're actually cloning people to grow parts that will not be rejected by your body. So let's say when your liver goes out, you have a replacement, and they'll just take that liver or part of the liver and basically take out your diseased liver, and you know, the person has to be sacrificed, whatever, or the animal. Okay, so this has been going on, and it's admitted to by the Chinese government. It's going on. They're saying that 150 years is going to be normal soon for people with money. You know,
well, they did a movie about that, about how the family had one daughter that was really sick. They had a second daughter, and she was basically a donor. They were just growing her to donate everything to make this. The other daughter was never going to get better. She had like cancer or leukemia, something crazy. Like, and
especially if you have twins,
wild. Yeah. I think the whole story was the other daughter decided she was going to like medically emancipate herself, because she is she's conscious to it. It's not like she's on a slab somewhere. But again, they play with these ideas and these stories. I'm like, well, you just gave us the blueprint in a movie and you put it out. You know, like this is exactly what's happening.
Fortunately, their direction they're going, at least with hearts, and this is really fascinating. I saw a program years ago, how they would take a donor heart and they would wash all the tissue off of it, and what you had left was like a white skeletal structure of the heart. And then they would start putting tissue from the person that's going to get this heart onto the heart, so that the tissue is being grown onto this new heart that is from the person that's going to get the heart, so it won't be rejected because it's going to recognize its own tissue.
Just like a month or two ago, they finally did the first one where it's not going to be rejected.
Well, and instead of taking a donor heart and washing it, they're able to 3D print this skeletal thing now. So then just grow the tissue on it.
The striated muscle.
That is where science makes sense. The like great? 3D printing, you know, from my brain. Because on my other side, I will say, I believe that you are born to live, you are born to die. You know, like if you're gonna die, you're gonna die. I'm sorry, boob. You got to go.
Yeah,
for whatever reason. Sorry. Okay, your meat suit's done.
It's part of the deal for sure.
But I think if, like if you have a faulty part and you're able now, we can 3D print things that are not a hard structure and do these crazy things, give them a chance. An 8-year-old kid has a bad valve in their heart. Well, come on, but it also makes you wonder who else is 3D printing parts in the sky or other places and doing something similar,
Oh, yeah.
It just blows my mind. They had to get the idea from somewhere.
Of course,
because we steal the ideas from
everything. Everything that exists on this world that we have made came from a thought first. That's like in the Bible. They said in the beginning there was like the thought, and then there was the light. When you think about it, thought is actually more primal than matter or energy, because we couldn't be doing this right now unless somebody had the thought at some point to do something. Okay, so it's imagination and thought that's the most primary thing. So God has a much more developed imagination than we have, and we're just part of it.
Yeah,
we're part of the equation.
Is the imagination, if you will.
The imagination. Yeah.
One of our interviews, a starseed lady, and I didn't mean to bash her or anything. She's her opinion might be right. Maybe we're wrong, but she did have this weird experience, right, as we're exploring. She did have this weird experience on the ship where they healed her lungs. And I think they'll do that for people that are kind of working with them.
Right. They need them.
Yeah.
Or they need them for later, or there has to be a reason. Not just like, oh, this poor injured butterfly has a broken wing. It's
right.
And one of the guys, this Missing 411 show, this Paulides guy did this research, and a lot of these guys, they're elk hunting by themselves, and they just vanish. And the day before, they saw a UFO or something, and they're never found again. Or sometimes years later, their corpse will be there, but it looks like it's a fresh corpse or something. Like very strange. Like they used them for 20 years and then threw them out of the ship or something.
Right.
But one guy said they took him and they were going to keep him, and they did some medical things to him. And then they found out that he had a vasectomy. And then they said, oh, we don't need you after all. So I guess what they're doing with these guys is just hooking them up to a sperm sucking machine for 24 hours a day.
Well, I think, whatever. But what they did, though, they put him behind a screen, and he used to have
tuberculosis scarring
of the lungs.
And it was gone. And there's some proof right there.
The doctors couldn't explain it.
The X-ray before and the X-ray after, because this has been healed by, our science.
Right.
Especially something like that, where, we've been working, we essentially, TB has since done awful things to our humankind. And it took us a long time to figure out although easy, to solve it. But those scars, you can't just oopsie daisy, they're gone. Yeah. They're bad. Nope. It's bad stuff. It's not like a common cold where you're like, you'll be fine in 6 to 8 weeks, your lungs will feel fine. So that's pretty substantial for those to go away.
Right.
Without, some sort of magical treatment we don't know about.
Yes. Yeah, sure. Well, we're at about the hour and 10-minute mark, and
our computer doesn't like going much further than that. It has buffering issues later.
Right. Yeah, it does.
But thank you so much for being our guest, and I'm sorry if we
I think she wanted to ask a lot more questions.
Glommed onto
no worries. Because
our theories into
what's good to know, real quick, is the Shaws are going to be back over on Creepy Confidential After Dark in a few months. So we'll be able to continue conversation. Absolutely, we will. Because we could go on for hours and hours and hours. So. It's one of those subjects you could just go on forever. And I'm a Midwesterner. We could talk forever. So
okay.
All right, sweetie. Well, we'll see you in a couple of months. And thanks everyone for tuning in. And good night.
And just Leslie, you're kidding me.
What?
Our merchandise store is up?
Of course, my darling. All of our amazing concepts of shirts, mugs, and bumper stickers are ready to go.
No way.
Even
my brilliant Egyptian concept that no one else ever thought of before?
Yes, that one too, and lots more. All at our new store at etsy.com/shop/abductions101.
Wow.
I want a shirt and a mug and...
Well, Stephen, and all our curious listeners, just go to etsy.com/shop/abductions101 to see all of our unique designs.
I'm going there.